G'day, Burke here. Today I'd like to talk about Subsistence and just basically why it isn't as popular as I think maybe that it could be. I watched a fairly large YouTuber the other day, and he was kind of genuinely surprised when he talked about how the game is underrated. And I think that that's actually a topic that might actually be worth discussing. This is on easy mode right now, so that I can run around a bit better, and you know, talk while I'm running around. And one of the things that I've found is that, you know, with a game that has received no publicity, you can probably sort of explain away why it's not so popular with that theory. But I think that in a game like this that has been covered by a lot of fairly substantial YouTubers, I don't think that that's actually an excuse that you can probably pass on to a game like Subsistence. So I'd like to sort of present my own theory as to why maybe this game isn't as popular as a lot of people think that it should be. And please bear in mind that this is just my own personal theory. So I'm going to base my opinions on my own, my own sort of playthrough of the game. And we can probably highlight one of them right here, just looking at that. I am on easy mode right now, and you've got two bears, or sorry, a bear and a wolf right there. And if we come down here, I think there was a wolf just along here as well. So there's still, on easy mode, there's still a fair few animals in the game. So, you're almost cut off from getting past this point here. So I'd like to point out that I do love the survival crafting genre. I've got hundreds of hours in many games like The Long Dark and Empyrean, 7 Days to Die. A lot of those sort of games, Subnautica and Stranded Deep. So there's a lot of games that I've got, and I'm no stranger to grinding for resources. So I'd like to point, as I pointed out up the ridge before, I think that the first problem, maybe the biggest one that needs to be addressed, is the sheer amount of animals that are in this game. As a game that's sort of, when I watch YouTube videos, they love to talk about how realistic this survival game is. But if you look at the amount of animals that are in this game, that you have to admit that it's almost like, well, I'm replacing the zombies and the other, monsters and things in the games with a flood of animals. There's almost an obscene amount of them in this game. And like I pointed out earlier, I'm playing on easy mode. And you saw back there, you got three animals almost blocking off an entire area. And that's sort of my issue with the amount of animals on normal mode. You're cut off from huge chunks of the map, and all the while you need to gather food and resources to build your base and defend it from the hunters. Sorry, I always get mixed up with it feels backwards, the controls on that one. Just gonna see if I can sneak in here and gather this. So one of my other issues as well with the amount of animals is that I've actually often found myself trapped inside my own base as well. I mean, there is a kind of a sneaky way around that. If you log out in the night time and log back in, there'll be generally no animals spawned around there. But that seems a bit cheap, and it breaks the immersion of the game as well. It's not really a fun way to play the game, as I see it. You know, I could shoot the animal as another option, but again, that doesn't feel, well, it's almost pointless anyway. Missed that one. You know, if I shoot the animal upon leaving the base, you'll find that when you come back in the evening, it will have respawned anyway, so, you know, sort of what's the point? Let's see if we can get him this time. So I do think that a good fix would be to have maybe a minimum spawn distance from the base, maybe. That feels like a good sort of good way to prevent being trapped inside the base, because it made me frustrated quite a bit not being able to leave my base in the morning without having to deal with you know, I'd often have a couple of bears and a wolf surrounding me on normal mode, you know, and it wouldn't matter where I built my base either. You know, you can pick any spot and there'll be no animals there, but then, you know, 2 or 3 days later you'll start having them spawning in right on top of your base. So I don't know if he has changed that or not, but it does feel like, for me, the perfect fix for that would be to have the minimum spawn distance. Like when you craft your BCU, it no longer has animals spawning right in that area. And even in easy mode, you know, I find myself, I think the other thing you could do is possibly change the difficulty setting so that you have the easy mode sort of amount of animals. Seems to me to be a good amount to have for general gameplay. Like the fact that you have to find this, you know, the amount of resources that you need to build your base up to defend it against the hunters and even mount an attack on them. It's quite a lot. Like if you watch a YouTube video, an uncut one will generally be, even some of the cut ones actually, you'll find that they're 90% sort of grinding for resources and maybe 10% base building, hunting animals and that sort of thing. So it's almost, I'm just following that deer around, I'm not going to try and shoot him. So I'd almost actually, you know, with the amount of animals in the game, I would almost describe it as a stealth game rather than a... I'd almost describe this game as a stealth game along with the survival genre. So my second problem is probably the amount of grinding that's involved in the game to get the resources and things that you need to craft. As I said before, I'm no stranger to grinding and I don't mind doing it, but I think that Subsistence probably takes us to a whole nother level. Like I said, like you could probably watch a good 5 to 10 hours, maybe more of footage, uncut footage of YouTube videos before you'll even see the person being able to mount an attack on the Hunter AI. It just takes a long time, and even crafting bullets and things, finding them's okay in the cases and that. I don't know. To be fair, this game's still in early access, and he may be rebalancing it at some stage, the dev, but I mean, as it is at the moment, crafting bullets is a complete waste of time. The amount of resources that you need to harvest and the time it takes just to do a couple of bullets, it's really not worth it. You have to basically just go around and find those crates is the only real way to do it. I don't normally mind grinding that much, but I do find that when you get to the higher tier... Oh, did that just despawn on me? It did too, didn't it? Yep. When you get to the higher tier gear, you need so much stuff and it takes so long to get. I generally find myself bored with the game before I get to those, before I get to that point. It's it's no longer fun for me. So the sort of the problem with that as well is that there's no real way to rectify that. As you know, you could make it easier for single player maybe, and or less resource intensive for single player, and ramp it up on multiplayer eventually maybe. But at the moment, you sort of it's a little bit high. Well, a little bit. It's quite high on normal mode, but or single player. But if you move to multiplayer, you'll find yourself, you do need that amount to keep it interesting. But you see what I mean there, like I'm on easy mode and there's no shortage of wildlife, and that was one of my main issues or worries. I wasn't sure if I'd even want to play on easy mode, because I thought, well, if it says in the blurb that there aren't many animals and it's more focused on building, and so I was worried, well, you need a lot of resources from these animals, so they are worth hunting, and I don't want to have to go too far out of my way to find them. But that on easy mode, that's definitely not the case. I would say that this should be normal mode. So I'd like to point out that I really love everything about, a lot of the stuff in this game, in this genre. It's got the potential to be huge, this game, I think. And so sort of in closing, I'd like to point out that, I really wanted to love this game, and right now I find myself, when I think of playing this game, I find myself feeling frustrated rather than looking forward to playing it. And that's simply based on, being stuck inside my base and things like that. And I mean, the good news is that this is a pretty easy fix. It's basically just balancing issues. The bad news is I could be completely wrong about why this game isn't as popular as it is, and it could be a completely different reason. And also, I think it's worth bearing in mind, I think that the developer may have actually intentionally done this. It's quite possible that he knows exactly why this game isn't as popular as it is, and he could be happy with that. I mean, it almost feels like this game is aimed at a subsection of the survival fan base, the ones that love the tedious amount of grinding that's involved in the game, and the obscene amount of animals and things that sort of make the game that little bit more challenging. But that's sort of my take on why this game is as sort of not quite as popular as I think it should be. Um, if you disagree with me, or you have your own opinions as to why this game isn't as popular as it could be, please feel free to civilly discuss this in the comments down below, bearing in mind that I'm not trying to have a go at the dev or rag on the game or anything. I actually genuinely would like to try and help figure out why this game isn't as popular as it should be. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to say on the matter at the moment. It sort of feels like this game has a huge amount of potential. Um, I've crafted this base while on easy mode, so you know it's certainly doable to build a decent sized base in not too long of a time. But if this was on normal mode, I would probably be surrounded by bears and wolves and things in my base, which I found it didn't really matter. I did quite a few playthroughs and found that was happening to me. So even if there is a minimum spawn distance once you put the BCU down, it's quite possible that they will still wander into your area. So maybe he needs to increase the distance on that. It's hard to say. But as it is, I'd just like to say that I think this game, the graphics are fantastic. The amount of stuff that's been added into the game all the time as well is also fantastic. I think it's just a few minor balancing issues that need to be sorted out. And because the game's in early access, it's quite possible that this is actually what will happen. So yeah, I think that the dev is doing a fantastic job, And I think this game has the potential to be huge. And like I said, please feel free to discuss it in the comments down below if you want. Maybe you guys think that this isn't, overly done, but I do think that one of the other problems I think that devs sometimes face when you go into early access, you're doing it to get other people's opinions on balancing issues and bugs and things like that. And it's entirely possible that what happens is that the main people that sort of comment on the game and offer advice and things about the difficulty is actually people that clock up hundreds and hundreds of hours in the game rather than the more casual gamers. And so for them, this probably is a piece of cake. Like once you've racked up 100 hours, dealing with a multitude of animals is probably a walk in the park. I know, say for example with the Long Dark, I found that happened with me myself. I play on interloper difficulty, the most difficult one there is, and for me it's a piece of cake to survive on that level simply because of the amount of hours I've clocked in the game. But if you're new to the game, you'd never be able to do that, and even 20, 30 hours in, you wouldn't be able to do that. And I think that might be one of the issues that the developer has faced, is the fact that a lot of the people commenting on the difficulty level may be basing that on the fact that they've racked up too many hours in the game and they're just too good at it. Or maybe I simply haven't racked up enough hours in the game. Either way, I think if you look at the amount of animals I've seen, and this is easy mode, I think that that's a pretty good justification for moving, easy mode to normal mode. Or maybe I should just be happy with easy mode. Anyway, this is Burke, signing out.